now. Lemon, lime, Celsius, let's go. Okay, I think we're live on all platforms. Thanks everyone for joining. My name is John, senior software engineer with 10 years of experience. I'm interested in helping you land your first or next programming role. And I'm also being laid off in public as a senior software engineer. So I'm not just giving you advice about what I would do in the job search or if I were laid off. I'm actually laid off as of like 6 business days ago, just over a week ago. And so you're seeing what I'm actually doing. And for the most part, my previous advice is the same thing as the things that I'm doing, but here's an edge case. GPT-4o is new. So we're going to give it a go. And Latterly does not officially recommend this thing yet, but I'm pretty sure we're going to, because all the reports are that it's better. So in front of us, you can see an abstract art tomato, where I was doing basically a dry run of GPT-4o yesterday. I'll give you an overview of some of the things that I saw. And then we'll dive into today's use case. Today's use case is for behavioral interview prep. So I have a Google Doc where I have brain dumped some anecdotes that I will assemble into project deep dives following the STAR method. And I'm even going to use a riff on the STAR method called the Starbies method or the Starbucks method. And I'll show you what that means. I think it's an improvement. And we're going to use GPT-4 to quickly turn my brain dump into a much higher quality document. That's the use case today. We're going to do 2 steps further than that. We're going to make these lists of anecdotes. Then we are going to draft a list of anticipated behavioral interview questions, and we're going to match them so that as a job search candidate, I can practice preparing for the anticipated question and quickly responding with an appropriate story that answers the question. So that's an overview of what we're doing today. Let's see, what did I test with GPT-4o so far? So the big thing that's making the news is that it has this voice interface now. Kind of like you talk to Siri, you say the magic word. I don't want to say it because my phone's running. But you say the magic word and Siri will talk to you. Now you can interact through voice with GPT-4. I think this is an incremental improvement. I actually don't think this is that cool of a feature, because it's not generating audio. It's not a direct to audio tool. It's basically a text to audio tool. And that was the first thing that I tested. Well, the first thing that I tested is whether the rate limit changed. So it did a web search. So it didn't innately know its own name or its own limit. So he thinks he's GPT-4. But it did a web search and it was very fast. So it got me the right answer quickly. So that's good enough for me. It looks like the rate limit hasn't changed with the new release. So you still get 40 messages every 3 hours. That's a bummer. I'd like to see that go up. There's a team plan with a higher cap. I should investigate how much that costs. I might actually just do a team plan for myself. And then I said, are you not GPT-4o? It ran a search and then it figured out oh yeah, I was released today. So here's some of the key differences. This is the one I'm very excited about, is the token window. The token window has gone up massively so that it now competes with Claude. So in a previous world, there was a trade-off between GPT-4 and Claude, and it was basically a high quality for a low context window versus a lesser quality for a large context window was my mental model, and lacking the code compiler there on Claude. And now we have a large context window in GPT-4, which is great. That's the main thing that I'm excited about with GPT-4 Omni. And then allegedly it's going to do better on the benchmarks. I trust the arena, the chatbot arena. And so it has not shown up on the leaderboard yet because it's so new. So this is where, is this the right thing? Yeah, this is the leaderboard that I trust with the arena points, basically, ELO. And you can see GPT-4 has been winning. And OpenAI's reports are that the new model is even better. So I kind of trust those just because they keep saying GPT-4 is going to win and it keeps winning. So they've got a bit of a track record, but I would like to see the actual magnitudes. Is it 1259 or is it over 1300? Like, how much better is it? So the concrete thing that I'm currently excited about is the context window. All right. And then I asked it to generate music. It said it can generate music, although I like not in the chat GPT interface here. So maybe if I connect through the API, I can do that, but that's like way too cumbersome. It did provide me a Python MIDI file generation. So it kind of generated music, except that I have to still copy this to my like local machine and install some Python dependencies to run it. If I was really, really wanting to make a song, I would do it, but this was more just a test for like, how cool is this upgrade? And so, yeah, shout out to OpenAI. Maybe you can port that through and I can just directly play the audio on the web interface. That would be like a lot cooler, in my opinion. I also tested out the image generation, and I wanted to see if the images were any faster or any better. It looks like, as far as I can tell, this was not significantly upgraded. I mean, they might have bumped the version of DALL-E or something, but it was still pretty slow. But it's a cool looking tomato. Okay, so that's what I've done to date. And now let's dive into today's task. So I'm going to do just sort of like a classic role task prompt. So role, you are a subject matter expert in the software engineering industry. You will help me craft a let's go for the questions first and we'll clean up the brain dump later. I guess we want to have two separate roles for these things. You are an expert hiring manager in software engineering. You will provide, like now task, this is the task. Let's say you have a reputation for making good hires. High quality hiring decisions about software engineers. Okay. Task, create a list of your top 10. Should we do 10 or 20? Let's do 20. 20 behavioral interview questions. That's it. I do see that the prompts are coming back faster, which is great. There are two that I want to make sure that are in here. One is tell me about a time you had a problem. And that actually becomes two, because you can tell me about a time that you had a technical problem, or you can tell me about a time that you had like a communication and collaboration, like a social problem. So I think those are two really important, pretty classic questions. What's another one? Tell me about a time you had to overcome an ambiguous situation. I think those are kind of the big three that I want to make sure are included in this bank. Here's one that I like. I actually don't hear this asked very often, but tell me about a time where you influenced an outcome that you did not directly implement. Or tell me about a time that you got someone hired or promoted. Tell me about a time that you were able to, mentor or promote an individual contributor. I think those will be the 5 that I add. So let's read through these and see if they're already included. I'll go ahead and rough draft them. I would like to add 5 more unless they are already included. Tell me about a time that you encountered an unexpected technical issue during a project. How did you overcome? Let's just leave it like that. Even how did you overcome is sort of leading, isn't it? Tell me that, but although we should be answering with a situation where it was one of the positive ones. Tell me about a time that you encountered an unexpected technical issue during a project. Tell me about a time that you encountered unexpected social friction during a project. Tell me about a time that you had to handle ambiguous, large, like a large set of ambiguous scope. Tell me about, I had 5. Did I have 5 or did I only have 4 and I called them 5? I feel like I'm forgetting one. Tell me about a time that you influenced an outcome that you did not directly implement. Okay, there were 5. Tell me about a time that you mentored an individual contributor to promotion. Okay, so let's read through. I'm not going to submit it yet because I want to make sure that they're not in the list already, but I would like to add these. These are kind of like ones that I think are important. All right. Tell me about a time you faced a particularly challenging bug. How did you approach solving it? Okay, that's almost like the exact same one, right? That's almost like the exact same one. Good. So it's kind of, GPT-4o is kind of like coming up with the popular ones first. Describe a situation where you had, excuse me, to learn a new technology or tool quickly. How did you manage it? Brilliant. Brilliant. Not brilliant because it's so original. Brilliant because this is a very commonly asked behavioral question. So it's going to be very helpful for us. By the way, if you're getting any value out of the video on TikTok, you can tap the screen to add some likes so the algorithm will send it around. Thank you so much. All right, give me an example of a time that you disagreed with a team member about a technical issue. How did you resolve the conflict? So this is close. The difference is that here I did not specify a technical issue. But that's pretty close. So it's really the ones that it's issuing are close to my top ones that I was hoping to get. Describe a project. Can you describe a project you worked on where you had to balance multiple priorities? How did you manage your time? That's nice. That's kind of like 2 questions, eh? But that's great. That's good. Tell me about a time you had to meet a tight deadline. Classic. Classic. A bit easy, but fine. Describe a situation where you received constructive criticism. This is a good one. Oh, another one is describe a situation where you provided constructive criticism. Is there, we'll keep reading through. I'll go ahead and jot it down. Tell me about a time where you provided constructive criticism. Okay. Where you receive constructive criticism. Let me eliminate the ones that already appear duplicate. So tell me about a time particularly challenging bug. You know what? Let's leave it. Let's leave it because the question is focused on a bug and mine is not. So potentially you could have a anecdote in your bank of prepared like stories that answers both. Like you could have a story about a bug and you could use it for the technical challenge or for the bug. But that need not be the case. They could be 2 different stories. So let's leave it. I'm going to go ahead and leave it. Large ambiguous scope. So there's like learning a new technology quickly, but that's only one kind of ambiguity. Mine is more focused on scope. So far that I actually don't think they're duplicate when you when you're being nitpicky. And true, my question bank, I may assign the same, I may respond similarly. But let's go ahead and leave both questions. Great. Make sure I'm looking at the YouTube chat. I wasn't looking at that. If you're on YouTube, thanks for being here. And if you have a comment, I am now looking at the chat. Cool. So I don't think they're duplicate as of this moment. Received, we were on what it was around 6. Yeah, received constructive criticism. Okay, next. Had to troubleshoot a system under pressure. That's great. What steps did you take to identify and resolve the issue? That's a great question. Tell me about a project where you implemented a significant change in the development process. I love that. Describe a time when you had to make a decision with incomplete information. How did you proceed? So this is really similar to the large set of ambiguous scope. I'll let them be two different questions. In my mind, they're really similar, but I think it's also fine in our sort of like question bank as we do interview prep. I think it's fine. I think it's even nice to have multiple like varied wordings of a question. And then as the question recipient, I can map them and say, hey, that's basically the same question. I'm going to use basically the same answer. That's like the whole purpose of our behavioral study. Oh man, you ever get that like positive tingle? Tom Golf Development. What's up, gang? Thanks for being here. What are we building? And Shaw shouting out from Twitch. Thank you. From Twitch is my smallest following, so I really love it when I get a Twitch follower. I think I have like 100 followers on Twitch. Today we are doing interview prep. ANSH030. I call that Anshaw. That's like probably totally wrong. We're doing interview prep. We're using GPT-4 Omni as a behavioral anecdote organization tool. By the way, on GitHub, I have this thing called Starboy. If you want to talk about tools for behavioral interview prep. So I made this open source project. You can check it out. It's open source. It's also like mediocre. It's like mediocre, but it'll help you learn the STAR method. STAR method is how you want to answer behavioral questions, basically. It's a really great mental model. And I think I have something even better we'll get into in a moment called the Starbucks method or the Starbies method, which is star plus 2 extra letters. B is for brag. I'll go ahead and foreshadow that. So one mistake that I see people make, which doesn't sound like a mistake, and at the junior level, it's not. Like if you do this, you can get a junior level job, but you're never going to get a staff job if you do this. When someone asks you a behavioral question, you answer the question, and that's all you do. This will never get you a staff job. When someone asks you a behavioral question, you should answer the question to ensure they have the signal they want, and you should over-deliver and delight them by providing a signal they didn't know they needed. So you should brag. You should brag. And so this is where we go from star to star B or Starbucks or Starbies. I just like Starbucks because the mnemonic is like, what do you do to prepare for your interview? You get some Starbucks. You get some Starbies, and that helps you prepare for the behavioral. And then the other mistake that I see people make when they apply the classic STAR method as opposed to the Starbies method with 2 extra letters is that they hear a question and they immediately answer the question that they think was asked without seeking clarification. So the 2 extra letters in the Starbies, there's the B at the end and there's an S at the front. So there's 2 S's. And the first S that I add is seek clarification. So if someone asked me, tell me about a time that you ran into a problem during a project, I would clarify before I answer. Are you looking for a social problem, a communication problem, a collaboration problem, a requirements problem, or a technical problem? Those are like pretty different buckets with pretty different answers. And they might say like any of the above are fine. And so then it would be up to me to pick that story, which I think demonstrates my most important skills. So there's a bit of a guessing game. And one thing that you can and should do ahead of time is try to gather information about the skill matrix at level for the company to which you're applying ahead of time. Really hard thing to do. Super powerful technique if you can pull it off. And the main way that I recommend you pull this off is ask your recruiter and also network ahead of time with hiring managers and individual contributors at that company and ask them. So if you get a referral, whoever gave you that referral, ask them if they can look up the skill matrix, if they're willing to share that with you. Awesome. Great question. Good tips. Are you preparing for an interview? Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. Yogesh, hi, how's it going? So we'll clip these and go back to GPT-4. By the way, you can sign up for free at latterly.io and join the Discord. We can answer additional questions if we don't get to it here during the stream. You can social network If you're interested in doing some practice interviews, you can network with people over there. And there's all kinds of material like leak code prep and more. This will eventually be blogged. It's not currently blogged, but it will be eventually be blogged at Latterly. Performance bottleneck. Fine. I don't think that's super interesting at my level, but for some people, sure. Discuss a time when you mentored or helped a junior engineer. What approach did you take? That's good. That's good. That might be similar to my number 5. However, my number 5 is not specifying junior, and my number 5 is specifying promotion. Maybe that makes it a bad question. Maybe that makes it a bad question because I'm specifying to promotion. Because it would be very easy for someone to say, well, like, I haven't done that. But that will be one of the ideal outcomes. Tell me about a time that you mentored an individual contributor. I'll just leave it at that. Tell me about a time that you mentored an individual contributor. And then the answer is like, well, I helped him get a promotion. It's a great answer. It's a pirate answer. Puts the R in the star. Okay. Sorry. I'm not a comedian, y'all. I'm just someone that teaches how to code. Thank you for the likes. Wow. That got a like. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Describe a situation where you had to work with a difficult stakeholder. How did you handle their demands? This is great. I think the main one, in my mind, it's like this is the ambiguity problem, but there's a lot of other ways to be difficult, aren't there? So I like that as a distinct problem. Give an example of a time when you improved an existing piece of software. Great. Tell me about a time that you had to adapt to significant change in your project or team. Ooh, that's a really good one. That brings up a whole class of issues that I haven't even previously thought about, like people going on leave, like a coworker quitting. It might, yeah. It doesn't need to be a problem. It can just be like a non-technical, unexpected change. That's great. Describe a time when you worked on a team project that failed. Ooh, this is so good. It's so good. Example of a time when you had to debug a complex issue. Fine. Good. I love these. Conflicting requirements is different than ambiguous requirements. That is so good. Hey, GPT-4 gets 100 on this test. Really good questions it's come up with. An example of a project where you had to use data to make an informed decision. When you took a calculated risk. Great. And then I have these 6 more, and after on review, I don't see them as duplicate. I don't see them as duplicate. Let's append these following 6 to the list. Please output the final list of 26 as a markdown file. Yeah, I'll say in markdown format. What else would I like to do with these 26? I would like to tag them. I would like to tag them. So let's turn this into a JSON file. It will have the question text and it will have tags. Each object should, before literally changing the format, let's ponder the destination data model. Each object should have an ID, a question text property, and a list of string tags that that like ambiguity. What else? Like ambiguity, technical, or troubleshooting. That will allow them to be easily mapped to common skill matrices for engineers. Does this cover the main use cases of questions like these, or are there other obvious properties that should be added to such a data model? Difficulty, sure. Thanks for the like. Robert, good to see you here. One thing that I don't like is that I said before literally changing the format, and it proceeded to go ahead and literally change the format. Okay, it was sort of like a preview. Pog, I haven't seen your stream in a while. What's up? What's up? Thanks for being here. So the ID, the question text, the tags. Difficulty is like really subjective, but yeah, fine. Oh, level. Level will be useful. And then how many times hit seen, like frequency. Instead of difficulty, let's use expected, level. Let's use expected contributor level, which might take values including entry, mid-career, senior, staff plus. Let's just do senior, senior, that's good. Instead of difficulty, let's use contributor level. Let's also add a frequency. Let's also add a frequency property that discloses relative, like likelihood of being asked this question in a real interview on a scale of 1 to 10. I think in the real world, I want frequency to be LeetCode style, where it's user reported. Like, I actually saw a question like this. But for now, I'll have GPT generate it using the scale of 1 to 10. Maybe I'll call this like estimated frequency, as distinct from a later to be added real frequency. Let's also add an estimated frequency property that discloses the likelihood of being asked a question similar to this, similar to the labeled question. During a real interview on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, so I said instead of difficulty, so we're eliminating difficulty. Let's also add, and we're having ID, questions, tags, level, the frequency. And so I don't want these latter three. Let's discard the other three properties for now. So we're going to discard category. I just want to use your tags. I don't want to have a distinct category. use case. We'll discard those. Thanks for the likes. By the way, if you're on TikTok, if you'd like to see the full screen, you can go to the link in my bio and go to YouTube or Twitch. These tags shouldn't be called tags, by the way. Like, they should be called like behavioral interview tags or something like that. That's on me. Now let's extract the tags themselves so that we can seed a Prisma project. Let's call this entity behavioral interview tag. It only needs, like this is where you can have a category. Dang, and then we need to like enumerate the categories too. No, we'll just do the text and the ID. Do I even want to do this right now? We're going to integrate the tool later today, but for now I don't need it. So I'll just copy this JSON file. 26, so we have our 26. I'm going over to laterally. I'm going to create a new issue. And this will be, oh, this is actually related to an existing issue. Better app tracker, better than star method. I'll put a high priority on this. This relates to something called Starboy, but I don't mention that here. Relates to integrate Starboy. Here's a JSON literal to enumerate anticipated, excuse me, behavioral questions. Okay. So we'll integrate that later when I work this user story. This could be later today. I have a blocker, which is the app router migration. I'll be streaming that later today, by the way. So follow the page if you're interested in live coding streams, interview prep, leak code. I do all this stuff. So I stream leak code at 3 p.m. Eastern time in the United States, Monday through Friday. Okay. So later today, I'll be doing leak code. What time is it now? It's like almost 11. So this is what's called an ad hoc stream. I just stream ad hoc sometimes, but my regular schedule is 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I do a dessert stream, an evening stream, 9 p.m. Eastern, or just after work on the West Coast. And those may also be leak code, or it's sort of like whatever I'm doing. It could also be open source development. It could be a podcast. It could be behavioral sys design, something like that. Okay, and so right now I'm assembling these behavioral questions. And then later I would like to integrate that into the Laterally website. But before I do that, there's actually two blockers. One is the app router upgrade that I mentioned. So I will be time boxing that on stream later today. I've tried to upgrade twice already and ran into issues. We'll give it a third try, time box it. If I can't get it through the third try, we will discard the upgrade for now, and we'll just carry on with the Pages router for another 6 months. The reason that it would be a good idea to carry on with the Pages router instead of grinding further and further is demonstrated by GPT-4. GPT-4 has an updated knowledge cutoff to October 2023. Which is borderline for me. It's like, it's an incremental improvement, but it's still not amazing. The reason it's not amazing in the use case of Laterally is that it doesn't incorporate fully the Pages router migration. So the pages router migration for Blitz.js occurred after October 2023. But you see, if we kick the can down the road and wait 6 months, at that point, first of all, the upgrade tool for Blitz might work better. So there's some issues open around that. So if we just kick the can, it could work better. And also, if there's another training update on GPT-4, that could be really helpful. So I think it makes sense to do like 3 strikes. It's out for now, and then it's not like permanently out, but we'll revisit it in like 6 months. In either case, that will get unblocked. And the second blocker is Stripe. So before I make the behavioral interview tool prep available in Latterly, I want to improve our Stripe integration because I want to monetize that. So Latterly has a free tier, 24/7 AI chat. That's going to get better now that GPT-4o is available. So GPT-4o can be used as the base model for a custom GPT. So I'll do that and I'll release it for free. So the free material is getting better and better, but this pay what you can, I want to add 1 or 2 features here. One is going to be premium blog articles. And then the other might be the behavioral interview prep tool. Frankly, I think the behavioral interview prep tool maybe should go under premium. Let me know. Drop a comment. If everyone's like, we'll sign up for pay what you can. If I get 10 times as many people that do the $1 or $2 or $3 a month, if there's 10 times as many people, then I don't need to make it premium. Like, I don't care. But if I only get like a couple people signing up, it's an economic thing. You see what I mean? We're trying to monetize this because I need to be able to hire like actual teachers. I can't afford teachers right now. So I have to do everything myself, which is not, the business will never scale. Latterly will never grow if I have to do everything myself. And that gets into a whole another conversation. I think I need to, that gets into a whole another conversation about a MOOC. I may be building a MOOC. As much as I hate MOOCs, it's like an online course. It's like you watch videos, the completion rate's low, the efficacy is low. But I might be doing a MOOC or a hybrid MOOC just to scale my time, like for no other reason than that. Alternatively, if a bunch of y'all want to sign up to premium, we can keep the instructor-led sessions because we'll be able to afford them. Okay. Thanks for the digression. Cool. So that gives you a little behind the scenes, right? Now I have my questions. Now I would like to brain dump and create answers to them. I'll do this 2 ways. I'll try it right here. And if it goes goofy, I will make a new thread. So the question is whether I want to purge the existing context window from memory. It could be useful to reference these questions though, so I'll leave it alone for now. Now I would like to provide a brain dump or poorly organized set of notes regarding anecdotes and project deep dives that can be used to answer these behavioral questions. I will provide the list. Oh, before we do that, let's talk about the Starbies method. I will provide the list, and we should organize answers according to the Starbucks method. Starbies is a slang term for Starbucks if the connection is not being made. And then Starbies relates to the mnemonic because the mnemonic is star with a B and an S. Although the extra S goes up front, it doesn't go at the end. So maybe not the world's best mnemonic, but hey, I think we have something here. If you can call it the Starbucks method, it sounds pretty cool. The Starbies method. So even before I do this, we'll prompt this momentarily. but I want to ask it if it thinks the Starbies method is like good. Let's discuss, let's move on to a new task. Creating answers for these questions. Before giving concrete answers, I will describe five approaches to answering. And I would like you to rate each approach on a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is likely to result in a positive evaluation from the interviewer. So it is advisable to the job search candidate. Does the task make sense? Let's clarify if needed. Or let me know if I should proceed to describe the 5 answer approaches. The task makes perfect sense. Love it. The first method is the star. The first method is the star method. The methods are 1, star method, 2, soar method, 3, dare method, 4, Starbies method, and then 5 is improv. Improv. Is that how you spell improv? Okay. Improv method. I expect, let me do improv method is here. I expect you already know about methods 1 to 3. Let me know if there is any confusion. Star is advocated by Amazon on their official website, for example, when interviewing, when answering behavioral interview questions. The improv method is opposite to preparing answers. The improv method borrows from theater techniques for improv acting. The approach is to try to read the room in real time and provide an entertaining and compelling answer in real time, as opposed to practicing an entertaining, tailored, and compelling answer in real time, as opposed to practicing anecdotes ahead of time. Right. The Starbies method is a modification of the STAR method using the acronym SSTARB. Before answering the question you heard, a one sentence or like clarify any ambiguity in the question. Provide a one sentence preview answer and ask, does this seem like the sort of thing you are asking about? 2, as situation, as in star. T. Let's get rid of the numbers. Let's keep the numbers. STARB. As in star, as in star. Brag. In addition to answering the question given, a job search candidate will want to communicate skills and qualities that the interviewer may have failed to specifically ask about. When we talk about bragging, we mean to make sure we communicate clearly some additional skills that we intend to convey by bringing up a particular anecdote. Ideally, these skills match to the target position for hire and the associated skill matrix for that position. Okay. I think that answers everything. STAR method is a 9. Oh, Starbies is getting an 8, so it's not as good as just doing STAR. Great, thank you for the descriptions. Here are the ratings for each method. Widely recommended and used, especially by major companies like Amazon. Good. And then it's filling in the STAR, so it knows what I'm talking about. Similar to STAR, the SOAR method adds a focus on obstacles, which can highlight your ability to overcome challenges. It's also structured and clear. But why'd you give it an 8 instead of a 9? Is it just because it's less frequently used? It's why it's saying 8 instead of 9? When I read STAR and SOAR, I literally think they're equivalent. So I kind of included them both here, expecting they would get the same number. I'm surprised that it got an 8 instead of a 9. DARE method, describe, action, result, evaluate. It's effective because it includes an evaluation step, which demonstrates your ability to reflect on your actions and learn. However, it might be less familiar to some interviewers, and the lack of a specific situation context makes it less structured. Okay. So situation and task are kind of bundled into this describe. So that makes it less structured. I actually think that's a fair criticism. If you could unbundle describe into these two. So maybe instead of STAR, you have stare, which is STAR with E. What do you think about a stare method, which is STAR plus evaluate? It gets a 9. Ooh, look at this. Okay, so improv method 5. While the improv method can be engaging and show your ability to think on your feet, it's risky. And this, again, was one of those things that I included as basically a test case. And I was expecting the number to be lower. So I want GPT-4 Omni to be able to provide me pros and cons. I want it to be able to detect that the improv method could be entertaining. Yeah, it has pros. It should also build resilience to unanticipated questions. It should build resilience to unanticipated questions, which is actually a weakness of over-optimizing on the structured approach. The lack of preparation can lead to unfocused or incomplete answers. It also heavily depends on the candidate's ability to read the room. So this is true, but I think it's missing value. I think you are missing a value in the improv method, which is a weakness in over optimizing on the other more structured methods. The improv method has a focus on building resilience to unanticipated questions, while the structured methods rely in predicting questions to be asked ahead of time, potentially creating a fragile effect in cases where an unanticipated question is asked. Given my feedback, do you revise any of your scores, or do you stick by your original numeric values even while slightly modifying the reasoning? Okay, bumped it up to a 6. I think that's totally fair. Cool, this feels pretty nuanced. I'm bummed that my Starbies method is only getting an 8. Okay, let's look at the reason. Improves on the star method. So it says that it improves on the star method, but it gave it a lower score. It can be perceived as overly complex if not executed well. I see the drawback. I see the drawback. The Starbies method improves on the star method by adding clarification and a brag element to highlight additional relevant skills. You know what? I think this is like totally fair. And I'm convinced by GPT-4 here. So I will say that the Starbies method should be quarantined to Senior Plus. That way it's okay that it's a little more complex, and it's okay that you're bragging, and it's okay that you are assuming the interviewer may not be looking for signal. Those are things which may not be good at the junior level. At the junior level, coming off as braggy could be a little more of an L, right? At the junior level, presuming to know something the interviewer failed to ask could be a little ruder, and a little ruder. Let's ask GPT-4 about this approach. Let's consider. Yeah, and let's also consider integrating the stair method with the Starbies method. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps. An even more complex approach that integrates Starbies with stair to include an evaluation and brag. To include. Yeah, I think I need someone else to come up with like the letters here. We have enough new letters, we can make a new cool word. Let's consider an even more complex approach that integrates Starbies with Stare to include both bragging and evaluation steps. Now, let's break the rating into 3 ratings. Overall, for junior use, for senior use. I imagine this is relevant in that a senior may be for senior plus use, or staff engineer may be able to brag with may be able to, okay. A best case, worst case analysis. I imagine the level guide ratings. I imagine the level ratings are relevant and that a senior or staff engineer may be able to brag with better execution. And with better execution, and it is not surprising to the interviewer that a staff engineer may have qualities the interviewer failed to ask about. On the other hand, a junior will have worse average delivery quality, and for them to presume to have skills the interviewer is not assessing for may be presumptuous or rude at their level. If you agree with this mental model, provide all 5 breakout ratings. But if my analysis of presumption and surprise by level is like subject to debate, what would you say? Subject to debate, controversial, then simply break out overall, best case, and worst case without reference to level. Bam. I agree with your mental model, as the effectiveness of the approach can indeed vary by the candidate's experience level. Okay, we got some 10s. 10s are what we're looking for, babes. All right, so the STAR method is still 9, 9, 10. So the STAR method is still looking best. SOAR method, I don't know why it's like underrating SOAR method. Let me ask you about that. Why does the SOAR method not receive scores identical to the STAR method? I see them as equivalent in my mind. Is it simply because the STAR method is more commonly referred to? I believe Facebook officially recommends the SOAR method. Is it because STAR is advocated by the prestigious Amazon company? I believe Facebook officially recommends the SOAR method, if that balances out the scores at all. The SOAR and STAR methods are indeed very similar in structure and purpose. Obstacles versus tasks. Given this similarity, it would be reasonable to consider them equivalent in terms of their effectiveness. Therefore, I'll revise the ratings, acknowledging that the choice may come down to personal preference or specific company culture. See, in my mind, that's the case. It's like who you're talking to, they may use a different word, but they're actually the same. Well, this is really amazing because it jumped from strictly worse to, is it going to be literally identical? Let's look. Strictly worse to literally identical. So it added a point across the board. The reason that's interesting to me is because this hybrid approach, basically, I'm not convinced that the STAR method looks better, but I'm not convinced that the STAR method is better in the best case. We say that the Starbies method builds on the STAR method. So I would expect it to have a higher best case performance. Similarly, we say that the integrated method performs even more strongly on a qualitative basis in the best case, but the quantitative rating is not aligned. Is it simply because the numbers 1 to 10 are too lumpy? So all three round to 10. If so, let's score 1 to 100 to see the best case difference. On the other hand, if you think they are insignificantly different in the best case, please directly state that. Directly make that statement. You're correct. The scale 1 to 10 might not fully capture the nuances. Given the qualitative assessment, it makes sense that they would have slightly better best case performance. Okay, so it's like a rounding difference. So here we can see 98, 99. This is all like very loosey-goosey. This isn't real science. This is basically pseudoscience. But I still feel the rubber ducking session with GPT-4 is constructive. So the best case here is 95. I'm loving this. So basically, like junior and mid, just use the STAR method. And then when you get to, like, what about, is there a distinction between senior and staff? So here, this is still 90. For senior plus use, that's still 90. Yeah, it's still going to be equivalent. Okay. How about the improv method in the best case? It gets up to 85. Even in the best case. Let's add one more method that adds improv to the integrated approach. So it's even more complicated and also theoretically would do even better in the best case. It need not have a score of 100 you can revise down the sibling approaches if that makes more sense. I agree that probably none of these methods. I agree that none of these methods will yield a positive result from the interview with 100% frequency. Cool. So the best case score is no better, and the worst case score is worse. I don't know that I agree with that. I think if you can execute STAR method and if you have improv skill, then you're more resilient to unexpected questions. That's okay. It's just a rubber duck session. So what we're seeing here is that everyone should use the STAR method, is what we're seeing. Seniors specifically, so for senior plus use, 90, 95, 90, 98, 90, 98. Yeah, so seniors specifically may benefit from reflecting on the brag and on the evaluate steps. Seniors specifically. I think that's a good summary. Okay, so in summary, I think that's totally fair. So Starbies and Stare is not doing any better than Stare alone. Is that true? Starbies and Stare is not doing any better than Stare alone. Does the evaluate step somehow include the bragging? I notice that for seniors, Starbies and the integrated approach, let's say, the integrated approach. I noticed that for seniors, the integrated approach is scored equivalently to the Stare method. Is this intentional? Does it mean that the value of bragging is already included in the other steps? The value of bragging is already implicitly covered in the other steps. And I think that's worth calling out. So like, how do we integrate the brag from start to finish is going to be interesting. I think it's true that you don't want to have like a separate step where you're just bragging. I think you want to integrate the brag. Oh, now it's up to 99. Wait, how did it reflect to make that better? Now it's like really, really clear. Oh, okay. It's being really clear that the integrated method is better. What did its mind change somehow? All I was doing was clarifying. The equivalence suggests that the added value of bragging might already be implicitly covered in the thoroughness and reflection steps of the STARE method for more experienced candidates. Seniors often have more experience to draw from and are naturally better at highlighting their strengths and skills. Let's adjust the scores to reflect a slight advantage for the integrated method, given that the bragging step explicitly encourages candidates to highlight additional skills and accomplishments. Okay. The way it looks to me is GPT-4 Omni is like, on second thought, they're not equivalent. On second thought, they're not equivalent. Okay, so the mnemonic is like, we want an integrated method. What does it mean to integrate? Well, you get your coffee and stare at them. This is great. Let's see. I'll make a note of this. Better than star method. Get the little share link. Public link created. Okay. Make this chat discoverable. Sure, why not? That's cool. That's fun. Yeah, let's post it on LinkedIn. Let's go wild. How to optimally answer a behavioral interview question. Get your Starbucks, get your Starbies and stare at the interviewer. With? Cool. It's advisable for senior plus, but not for juniors due to complexity and brag perception. I think that's basically it, right? We don't want juniors to do this because it's complicated. And I don't know if the brag perception part is real. In summary, the integrated method is advisable for juniors and not, let's just say due to complexity. Keep it simple. It's advisable for senior plus, but not for juniors due to complexity. Juniors and mids should just use star. So that's my tentative advice. Still going to be flexible on that when I speak with actual experts who know the research, but I think that was a healthy rubber duck from ChatGPT. So now that we're here, so in summary, star method is a best practice across levels, and the integrated approach provides even more utility for senior plus job search candidates. Based on this, let's proceed to create answers for the answers for behavioral interview questions. We will have an anecdote, or like a behavioral anecdote data model, which will have some properties. So the first thing is that when you seek clarification, you want to be ready to have a one-sentence preview and be ready to pivot. You want to have a one sentence preview and be ready to pivot. Should the pivot be carved into the data model? Sure. I think it's an optional thing to do, but you can say that, yeah, option. I think it's a fine optional thing to do. I wouldn't want to critically depend on that because you wouldn't be able to exhaustively list and maintain the similar stories. So here's the preview. Seek clarification, optional step. So the first thing here is, as a step, I'm going to seek clarification. But from a data model perspective, what am I doing? I have my one sentence preview and my similar stories. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Dang, I hit the enter button. One sentence preview, similar anecdotes. For use in the integrated approach as part of the seeking clarification step. For use in the integrated approach as part of the seeking clarification step, specifically if the job search candidate needs to pivot. I'm just wondering, like, as an actual tool, how useful is this? Chat, let me know your thoughts. Should this be integrated into the tool? So you're practicing, right? And someone says, hey, tell me about a time that you ran into a problem. And you say, you give your one sentence preview of your anecdote. You say, well, I can tell you about this time that I ran into a technical issue with Redis. Is that the sort of like project problem you're looking for, something technical, or would you be looking for like communication or collaboration? And they say, well, I don't want to hear about the Redis story. I'm actually more interested in like a communication and collaboration, sort of like problems with your teammates kind of question. So then you need to pivot. As a practice tool, does it make sense to like enumerate the pivot locations, or do you just like not have that in the data model and you just start back from square one with the whole list of anecdotes with one of them crossed off kind of thing? Like, what's simpler? I think it's fine to list these similar anecdotes. I'm just not sure how you're going to use it. And the fact that I'm not sure how you're going to use it makes me want to leave it out. So I'm in a cycle. I'm in a loop. Yeah, I want to leave it off. We will treat the anecdotes as entirely independent, even if that's not quite true. Because like creating dependencies between them is complexity for what benefit? For not a clearly valuable benefit, and we can always add it later if needed. Like if a year from now I discover that somehow creating a dependency graph between the anecdotes is like super valuable, we can just add it. So we'll do a one sentence preview. In fact, I like turning this one sentence preview, like now that I did the example where I'm talking to the interviewer and I'm imagining them and I'm saying, is that the sort of story you're looking for? I like to even turn it into a question because it reminds us that we need to ask for clarification. So the seeking clarification step means that me as the interviewer, me as the job search candidate, I'm asking the interviewer a question. I'm not just making a sentence preview statement. Still, if it's always going to be the same suffix, if it's always going to be, is that the sort of question, is that the sort of story you're interested in? If that phrase is like a magic phrase that's always appended as a template, then it's not part of the data model, right? So the sentence preview is the variable portion of that seeking clarification step. I think that's right. So we'll always ask the question, but the question does not go in the data model. So one sentence preview, S situation, task, TA action, R result. And then for the integrated approach, we're going to do Starbies and stare. Brag. Probably you want to brag before you evaluate. No, you can brag like the evaluation can include bragging. So the bragging thing is like across steps. It's kind of weird. It's not a distinct step where you're like, and that was the result, and now I'm going to brag. But the evaluation is a distinct step. And the bragging sort of permeates. The bragging sort of permeates. So I'll put it at the end. Brag, right. Situation can be a literal string, task can be a literal string, action a literal string, result. It would be nice if I could make that like an integer or float or something. These can all be strings. Brag. Now, brag, I want it to be a highlighting of skills. I want it to be a highlighting of skills in terms of the data model. Demonstrated skills. Skills. Just skills. I think it's just skills. Behavioral anecdote skills. Maybe skills demonstrated. A list of string skills, or like a list of skills which is used for bragging throughout the anecdote. That's fine. And then 8 is going to be the matched questions, like anticipated. A list of behavioral anecdote questions, or just behavioral questions. So you can see we're building out this data model. One sentence preview, situation, task. We can do by ID. Does this data model make sense? Oh, and we can do which are optional. So star is required, and the others are optional. An optional string. STAR, a required. A required string. A required string. Great. An optional string. Skills demonstrated. a list of string skills, which is used for bragging throughout the anecdote. I would prefer that it's not optional. Like, so you can optionally brag during the interview, but you shouldn't optionally associate skills at preparation time. If you cannot think of any skills that are demonstrated by this anecdote, you shouldn't even be recording the anecdote. That's my 2 cents. Whatever. In Prisma, arrays are always required, although they can be empty. And requiring it to be a non-empty array is like a weird process. So I'll just leave it alone for now. But there should be some business logic validation to make sure that that's not empty. Probably a form validation. Okay, so anticipated questions, a list of behavioral questions that are anticipated by ID. Does this data model make sense? If so, I will proceed to provide you my notes or like my poorly organized anecdote notes, which are loose text, and we can organize them to comply with the data model and answer specific anticipated questions. If not, let's revise as needed. If it looks good to you, and we're using a lot of tokens here, aren't we? So you can see we're leveraging that GPT-4 Omni token window and pushing the boundary to the point where I'm asking, like, do I want to create a new thread, a new chat thread? So I'll grab this summarized data model. And I'll drop this in the GitHub issue. So we're sort of building out this GitHub issue number 222, which will be implemented hopefully later today. But there's the potential it might spill into a different day. Because remember, we have 2 blockers on the technical implementation of this tool. Copy code. I don't want that in there. Copy code. Summarized data model of behavioral anecdote. Does the name make sense? It makes sense to me, but when I was talking to other coaches, like tech coaches, it seemed like no one used this term anecdote. So when someone I've heard the term project deep dive. The issue is that not all of these are projects. Should they always be a project? Let's see. So someone says, tell me about a time. You're always going to answer with a project. I mean, you're going to always answer with some basket of activities. And maybe those basket of activities can be considered a project whether or not they were formal. Because like I have anecdotes that have to do with like the Python guild, like my skill horizontal, my practice area, which is not my vertical. So these are not like formal prioritized quarterly epics, but there's still tasks that we're doing. Like an inner sourced project is still going to be it's still going to be a project. So you could view it that way. Maybe that's the cleanest way or like the normal way to view it, but I've never really thought about it like that. I just consider these to be anecdotes. They say, tell me about a time. The response is a story. It's an anecdote. Um, a short, amusing, or interesting story, right? I'm going to keep calling them anecdotes. Yes, I agree that practically these anecdotes are almost always project deep dives, or even if they are not formal projects, they could be viewed as informal projects or task collections. If by project we just mean a collection of tasks, and that is kind of what we mean, right? If we have a formal project in a project management situation, we'll break that project into concrete tasks, won't we? So if by project we just mean a collection of tasks, then yeah, they're always projects. This deep dive thing is weird to me because like when is it a deep dive? Maybe that just emphasizes the point that you want to get to a low level of detail. I guess that's the part I want to push back on because it's like in your interview, you don't actually go to the low level of any of these things. Like I'm not walking you through the class I implemented. Yeah, I mean, maybe in some cases you're actually talking about a class you implemented. But if I implemented a bunch of logic, a deep dive to me would be like going line by line through the logic, which is not what you're doing in a behavioral interview. What you're doing is this stuff, the metadata of the story, if you will. Like what was the result? I think I'm splitting hairs here, and I think it doesn't matter. I think it's fair enough to call it an anecdote, and you can view these as project reviews, project discussions. And then whether or not you call it a deep dive is like, who cares? It is it is a kind of deep dive in the sense that it's going to be a non-trivial. It's a deep dive in the sense that you don't want it to be trivial. Um, so fine, there's a sense in which it is a deep dive, and there's a sense in which it is not a deep dive. But there's no sense in which it's not an anecdote. The anecdote is core, so I'm happy to call it that. Great. And importantly, GPT-4 totally understands what I mean. So that's actually important in my book because I want to have interoperability with AI assistants. Please go ahead and share your anecdote notes. All right, here's where you all get to see my messy Google Doc. Where is that thing? My anecdotes. Believe it or not, I have three Chromes open on my computer. I have like 3 monitors, and each of them has their own Chrome. Behold all of the tabs. My poor M1 here. I need to upgrade to like an M4 or something. So these are my anecdotes, and they are like the headings are in theory numbered. I don't know that that bold will paste over to GPT-4. And then here, it's like even grouped. This is so bad, dude. Okay, so I'm gonna just copy all of this. And this is my legacy approach, is that like if you're trying to collect your stories and you don't have the Laterally tool because it's not done yet, what do? Just use a Google Doc. Just use a Google Doc. You can use this Starboy tool. You can use the Starboy tool that I've shown you here, and it will allow you to like download, import, and export a JSON. You can like add an anecdote, employer, situation. Oh, it also matches to employer. Yeah, which is part of the situation. How relevant is that? I'm curious about that. Um, I think I added that because I would start talking about these stories and I would always get asked, like, when did this happen? Like, who's the employer? So I think it's just boilerplate out of the situation is that you want the, yeah, this is actually relevant. Is it a quarterly story, a half story? Is it a quarterly story, a multi-quarter story, a multi-year story? Like the level of like how long did this take is actually interesting to the interviewer. And they will level you on this. If your work is a multi-quarter effort or a multi-year effort, that puts you in a different category than, this task took like a few weeks. So, quarter, yeah, let's add that to the data model. Where's my little, let's extend the data model to mention, to specify more detail on the situation. Situation, year occur, like year, like I don't care about the exact date that this happened, but can you give me a sense for like at least the year? Like when did this happen? We'll say occurred at. Um, the year, the anecdote. Let's say the date the anecdote occurred, roughly. I really don't expect people to come to Latterly and then remember the exact dates that these things happened. But they should remember what year. KB, what's going on? Thanks for being here. We are doing behavioral interview prep. So what I'm trying to think about this thing is from three angles, which is why I'm kind of moving slowly. I'm trying to think about this for my personal current practical prep. Then I'm trying to think about it for like people who are going to use Latterly as a tool in the future when this thing is implemented. And then I'm trying to think about like what bits of data do the employer care about? Like I don't like the employer does not care about whether this occurred on June 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. They probably don't even care whether it occurred in June or July, except like maybe to the extent that like if your anecdote is associated with the onset of COVID, um, like they just want to make sure that kind of like the things line up. Like if you're talking about George Washington in 2010, something's wrong, right? But like, what's the level of resolution to which they care about? I'm having a hard time thinking that they care about the month. Like if you're a month off, if you're like, I'll tell you about the story that happened in February, and they're like, they're talking about a story that happened in February, but I know that this happened in March. Like, do they care? Okay, I don't think so. Um, I mean, if it raises a red flag that you're lying, they will care. But if it's just like you were off by a month in your memory, I don't think they care about that. But still, I don't think employers care too much about month at all. What they do care about is, like I said, quarterly, multi-quarter, multi-year. And so they would care whether the scope was a quarterly scope. Um, I don't know that they care too much about which quarter, except again, just to make sure that like sanity check. Like if we're talking about a story that's related to Christmas, it didn't happen in Q2, right? That could be its own red flag. Not that you're lying, just that you're kind of like don't know how words work. If you're like, yeah, Q2, Christmas, right? It's like something is off about this guy. Like either the company he worked has like a messed up calendar or So, so I kind of want this to say like the quarter, the date the anecdote occurred roughly. I think the quarterly resolution is the right one. From a data model perspective, how do we enter that? I guess you'll have the quarter in the year. Let's extend the data models to specify more detail on the situation. The date that the anecdote occurred roughly occurred at quarter. The business calendar quarter under which the anecdote occurred. Let's say within which. Occurred at year. The year in which the, and here this will be an integer, the integer year. And this will be, so these are integers. The integer business calendar quarter within which the anecdote occurred, the integer year in which the business calendar, whoa, autopilot just fried my brain. The integer year in which the anecdote occurred. And maybe we care about ended at. And then we'll do ended at year. Fine. Okay, so now you have your full, is it multi-year or whatever? The integer quarter in which the anecdote ended at year. The integer year in which the anecdote ended. Here I'm not spelling the word occurred properly. Straight to jail. Occurred has two R's. Let's not mess up the data model. All the letters are present and accounted for. So we have the dates. And then that should like match to an employer. I could do a lookup here. If laterally integrates the resume, then I could just do a lookup. Like I have the occurred at quarter. I can just do a lookup and find the employer name. But laterally does not have an integrated resume today. Another reason to prioritize that LinkedIn integration. There is a backlogged LinkedIn integration. Import resume from LinkedIn. I haven't backlogged importing the resume because I don't want to do it. But we can see how it relates to, facilitates anecdote composition, and it's including automatic lookup of employer associated to a situation given the anecdote occurred at time. Note, because our occurred at time has quarterly resolution, a lookup might ambiguously yield multiple employers. That's okay. Just let the user choose. So that would be an advantage of having the day-wise resolution. But I don't think the benefit is worth the cost. Like, I don't think forcing people to write the exact date. The thing is, most people are not going to remember. So they're going to end up putting like a BS date anyway. Whatever. Good to go. Employer name. The name of the employer. Oh, maybe we even want optional team name. So the employer name will be recognized, or the employer name will be required, the string name of the employer. Optional, the string name of the team on which the job search candidate was working when the anecdote occurred. Oh, this is interesting. You could have multiple team names here. That's yeah, for like cross-functional projects, cross-cutting projects. Maybe you want to like mention the different teams. Interesting. Chat, let me know your thoughts here. I see three options. One option is team names, which is a string list. Two option is don't worry about the team names, only care about the primary team, the one that employee was actually on. And then option three is do both. So you could have like a list of involved teams, and then you could have the primary team. So is the benefit worth the complexity there? And I think the answer is like yes in that case. I think the answer is yes. Primary team name. Optional, the string name of the team on which the job search candidate was working when the anecdote occurred. And then 7 is project team names. Optional, a list of strings of the teams involved in the project. Cool. I'm going to still say that this is like a low priority. There's probably other things that we can do. Sorry, not probably. There are definitely other things that we can do if we import your resume. Basically, in the future, like 5 years down the road, I can have an AI look at your resume and be like, yo, I'll give you a better resume. The issue is I don't want to do that right now. Maybe in 5 years. So immediately, the only benefit that I'm seeing, well, and we can also see bidirectional, so that you fix up your stuff in the laterally context, and then I push it to update your LinkedIn description. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that right now. But in the future, there's a bunch of stuff that we can do with like a deeper LinkedIn integration. So the main use case today for LinkedIn integration is social sign-on. And even that one is relatively low priority compared to Google social sign-on because of user share. Google social sign-on is a genuinely high priority. And then I have Discord, and then LinkedIn is like in third place. Those are the 3 social sign-ons that I do want in their priority order. So even among those 3, LinkedIn is kind of like, eh. Almost everyone that has a LinkedIn has a Google. I don't know about you, but me, when I go to sign in to LinkedIn, I'm using Google to sign into LinkedIn. So how many people are going to use the LinkedIn social sign-in that would not be supported through Google? It's a small number. It's a non-zero number, but it's not a huge number. Therefore, low priority. All right, we're booping the thing. Closing this, and now we're back over here. Oh no, the situation should also still have a description. The situation. Another thing that's crossing my mind now, I don't know if we want to formalize this in the data model, but when you have your list of anecdotes, it will be really good to have those quality reviewed, either by a coach or maybe even by a tool. Yeah, let's add a Boolean. Let's it wouldn't be a Boolean. It would be a ternary. So you can have quality reviewed is true or false. That's the like not super helpful distinction, but whether you have it like not reviewed at all, reviewed by a peer, reviewed by a coach, or reviewed by an AI, that's interesting. And I don't think that you want to do that four-way categorical. I think you would want the combinatorial categorical, because it could be the case that it's been approved by all three, or like by multiple, right? To this data model, let's also add a top level list of strings called approved by, which enables job search candidate quality review. In the future, you could have like concrete IDs there. It's like reviewed by Jim and Sarah and Bob. But for now, we'll just do approved by a list of strings. We will leave it undetermined for now whether this list of strings is a list of people names, enumerated roles, or something else. Yo, this data model is kind of slapping. I'm getting more stoked about this tool. Like the more we add to this tool, the more I'm like, yeah, this Starboy thing is like way basic compared to what we're about to have. And even the Google Doc. I'm like, by the time we have this in place, it's very clear to me that this is better than a naive Google Doc. Where the Starboy thing was like, it wasn't even clear that it's better than just having a Google Doc. Okay. So here we have even Mo Beta data model with approvers for quality review. Heck yes. Let's see. Cool. We're getting close to complete and right on time. Please go ahead and share your anecdote notes. Okay, so here's the anecdote notes. I'm going back, Command A, Command C. I'm coming here. The notes follow. Titles are mostly enumerated, although not in all cases. And further, many titles are missing the main content of the anecdote. Try to coerce these into JSON stories by yourself in a rough way. The first thing is to like enumerate the stories. 9 to 13, 14 plus, even messier brain dump. 14 plus has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 14 plus has 8. Here, so 14 plus has 8. Here are the loose notes. Let's start by coercing them into a JSON list and then work to improve them. The titles are mostly enumerated except the 14 plus section has 8 stories under it without specific titles. And some titles have no anecdote content under them at the moment. Let's start by enumerating the stories, then move to ensuring every story has a title, and finally, let's follow this order of operations. Ensure we have the right count of stories. Ensure every story has a title. Then ensure every story has a description, has a situation description. Then move on to fully filling in all properties for each story. It's okay that our JSON file will not fully comply with the final data model schema until the end of step 4. Find the notes below and let's proceed. Bam. Woo! This is the apex of the stream. It may not feel like it, but this is what we've been building toward. Look at GPT-4o Omni do its work. So what are we looking for? We're looking for a count of 14 plus 8, plus or minus 1. There could be an off by 1 there. So roughly 22. Roughly 22. It's going to not have the ID specifically in the data model, which is fine because if you ran this through like a migration, it would auto enumerate the IDs or like auto increment the IDs. So technically that's fine from a code perspective, but from a practical perspective, I kind of wish they were ID'd so that I don't have to count them by hand. Oh, it's like null, null, null. That's so bogus. All right, now we're going to rely on that context window to help us fill out the titles and the situation description. There we go. That should be an empty string, not null. It's okay. I'm okay with you, GPT. Look how bogus this is. So under the even messier brain dump section, it's just nulling out all the values. Hopefully it does better with each iteration. Okay, we have 14 titles explicitly mentioned and 8 stories under the even messier brain dump section, making 22. Great. The JSON structure currently reflects this count. Okay. Take your word for it, bro. Step 2, let's assign titles to each story based on the notes. I love the way it's echoing the steps back. Okay, so we'll continue generating. So here, title 2, 3, 4, 5. It's slowing down. And it's kind of jittering. So am I on 5 or 6? I sort of lost my cursor. So you can see it's slowing down, right? That's not just my stream lag, just so you know. Like GPT-4 itself is notably slowing down right now. Looks like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Thanks for the likes. Rub them in. Thanks for being here. 11, 12. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I only counted 20, but the jitters could have been throwing me off. And there will be duplicates in these 20. So after refinement, it's going to collapse to under 20, I think, because my even messier brain dump section, I think it has duplicates in it. We have 22 stories, assigned titles to each story. Oh, descriptions have been added, you say. Cool. Next, we'll proceed to step 4 in filling all properties. Before we fill in all properties, let's dedupe these stories. Which stories have similar titles? Yep, those are duplicate, basically. Building the Python guild. Yep, those are, this one can be split out. Right, I think these are the 4 duplicates. Lead, COVID response, and then COVID. Okay. Do I want a story about ChatGPT? I think so. We don't need a story about temporal. But I think it's worth talking about how I helped champion GPT at Upstart. I think that's worth it. Python Guild, Golden Path, EVCLS basically go together, and then Copilot and ChatGPT will say that's their own thing. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 18 stories after deduplication. Brilliant. This is already, I think, in some ways better than my anecdotes because at least I have the 18 stories enumerated instead of I enumerated 8 and then I have a 9 to 13 group and a 14 plus group. So at least now it's like there's 18 stories. This is a really good starting tool. Now what about, the simulator is also a duplicate. So the sim and the simulator are also duplicate. Let's review this list manually for duplication then. Self-taught coding, cool. Managing out 2 ICs, great. Prototyping, that's a great story at Capital One. Contractor leader at Amazon's an interesting one. I was a contractor, but I was like directing a team of non-contractors. That was really weird. Improving quality at Upstart, that was great. Building and leading the Python guild, good. Good. So here, this is like the pricing, this is like the team level, and this is like the guild level, so we can use two different stories. Open source, Kafka event bus. Are these duplicate? Calling the conversion model. Let me see what I actually wrote down. Did it give it a weird name? I'm not immediately recognizing that. 1 TPS. Oh no, those are two different stories. Okay. Good thing I wrote it down because I totally forgot. Okay. So good. Designing an efficient interest rate calculation algorithm at scale. What is this about? Yeah. So that's basically when I had to solve the convergence issue. Okay. Wait, but then I talk about the convergence error fix here. So are those also duplicate? Yeah. Yeah, so the convergence story is a duplicate. There are two more duplicates. Let's merge them also. Is the same anecdote as what did I say? Designing an interest rate calculation algorithm at scale. That sounds cool. I guess that presents well, but it's not the way I remember it. But that is what we did. Is the same anecdote as this, okay? And efficiently running the pricing simulator is the same anecdote as building the sim tool. Okay, so 16. Okay. Wait, how did we get down to 15? So there's 18 with two duplicates. I'm expecting 16, right? Am I stupid? 18, 2 and 2 means I need to subtract 2. So why are there not 16? If there were 18 and 2 were a duplicate of another 2, shouldn't 16 remain? Why are 15 stories enumerated? Is one missing? Maybe it forgot about the chat GPT getting split out. Maybe that was the issue. Yeah, okay. It forgot that we wanted to split out the chat GPT thing. Okay, cool. So here's the 16 stories. Good. Let's proceed to I just want to have the situation good for these. Let's proceed to define only the required star fields for these 16. for now. So I think what I'd like to do is take this structure as a like markdown and like save that for now, and then polish up the rest of this later. But I think this will be good. I think this is great. I think this is great. Is it going to copy as markdown? Let me see if I can. Excuse me. So if I copy this onto this document over here, what is the format? Let's do a page break. Okay. Yeah. Yep. It copies it over as markdown. That's great. Okay, great. So this is basically, so let's look at one of these examples. Efficiently running the pricing simulator, combining with building the sim. That's great. The pricing simulator at Upstart runs pricing logic using predicted customer profiles for 1 month at a time. I don't know that that's the best way to phrase that. Using predicted customer profiles. No, the customer profiles are fixed and the results are predicted. Okay, so we're going to need to tweak, but basically that's fine. Like, it's getting my anecdotes together and then I'll review and tweak, obviously. I'm not just going to like parrot the literal strings that come out of GPT-4. The value here, okay, compress a normal month of data into simulation time efficiently. Yeah, fine. So we'll refine it, but that's like close enough. Leverage Kubernetes scaling S3 cache and feature flags. We did some other stuff too, but that's a lot of it. Yeah. Compress 340K customer inquiries. Yeah, I think that is the literal metrics. Let me double check. Yeah, so the recall on the literal metrics is correct, which is a lot. Which is a lot of what I wanted here. That and then organizing it nicely. So this is good. The remaining two tasks are, let's fill them out and then match them to the stories is going to be kind of the big kicker. And then if possible, integrate it into the tool. But even if I maintain this in the Google Doc for now, if they're organized and matched to anticipated stories, I want to get a flashcard effect at some point though. So how do I get to the flashcard effect? I can do another GPT session to get the flashcard effect, where it gives me a behavioral and then I just pretend that I'm talking to the robot and it's like, here's what I would answer. So I can still get a flashcard effect even without building out the tool. And that's going to be, the flashcard effect is what's going to drill it into my brain to help me with the actual behavioral, like real-time, like recall, real-time match and recall, which is what I'm going for the actual interview prep. Okay, so I'll make a note of that. The lowest effort approach here is make a Google Doc of anecdotes, use a custom GPT loaded with behavioral questions to simulate a behavioral interview. Bonus, if the custom GPT rates your answers and provides feedback. Cool. So I think a custom GPT approach could be implemented inside of a day, which is probably faster, right? Compared to a real tool integration. So the real tool integration won't actually accomplish the flashcard effect. It will just nicely store the anecdotes. So look forward to this. I'll be building a custom GPT. So here we have basically organized our anecdotes, which is one GPT-4 use case. And there's a distinct GPT-4 use case, and we'll do them both, but that'll be a separate stream where I'll have a custom GPT for running, simulating a behavioral interview. I think I'm going to build that later today. Let's go. That's exciting. All right, stay tuned. Thanks for being here. Go ahead and join latterly.io, join the Discord. If you join the Discord, not only can you do the usual Discord things like chat with humans and network and bring questions and get help if you need it, but I will let people on the Discord know first when the link is available to my simulated behavioral interview custom GPT. So I'll build that probably later today. Maybe it'll roll over to tomorrow. But if you join the Discord, you're going to be the first people to access that. And I don't even know if I'll make that available free. It might be under the paid one. So you might want to join the Discord so you can get free early access. And then I don't know how paywalling custom GPTs works. I haven't done that yet. So we'll see if they support it, I might do it. If they don't support it, I'm not going to build a workaround. That's like way too much effort. It'll just be free. So you can ping Sam